Hello, everyone, and welcome to Encounters USA. Thanks for dropping in. We've got a great podcast for you. We've got Ron Morehead, Rich Germeau, and Todd Neiss, some of the biggies in the Bigfoot world. And we're going to be talking about a number of issues that concern both Bigfoot, the Bigfoot world, and probably you yourself as a fan of the paranormal. So before we get started, I just have to explain to you, I ran into some technical difficulties. I wanted to use a whiteboard on the Zoom recording so that I could play movies that we were talking about or video clips that are coming from YouTube about various sightings of Bigfoot. Unfortunately, the whiteboard app just took over the whole program and left us all relegated to a small box up in the corner of the screen. I've done my best to put in the video clips I want you to see, as well as some other great video clips and some clips that I've shot during my time doing Encounters USA. So I hope we can make a really good show for you to see. I hope it's entertaining for you. And more than anything, I hope it is enlightening and brings you some knowledge and some understanding you didn't have before.
And, pretty much both pretty well documented. There's plenty of media out there on it that you can watch and see. Some stuff in between and then, some ongoing stuff in that we might talk about later.
Okay. You guys, all right. So I want to, anyway, if we are recording, just everybody understand, I haven't done this for a long time, and I just got a message that the recording is in progress. Now, I think I've been recording for the last 15 minutes, so I don't even know what that meant. But if for somehow this is the beginning of the podcast, that's great, because Ron had actually stepped out and now he's back.
I'm back.
This is a perfect entrance for Ron. All right, so Ron, what we're doing is we're talking about our encounters very briefly, and Rich has talked about his. We'll go to Mr. Todd Neiss.
Hey, how's it going? So, for those of your listeners who aren't aware, I did have a very amazing encounter back in April of 1993. I should say prior to this, I was a non-believer. That is, I had put this in the category of an urban legend, a campfire tale, what have you, but I did not give it any credence, having been a active hiker, outdoorsman, fisherman, hunter, mountain climber. And so, not having seen any evidence that would lead me to believe otherwise, I had put that in that, relegated it to that category. However, on April 3rd, 1993, during a military exercise, being a combat engineer, we were using explosives, and we had 3 different sites we were detonating explosives at in the Oregon Coast Range. It's the very, very, very northwestern corner of Oregon, probably about 10 miles from the actual Pacific coast, inland, obviously. And anyway, in that particular, and not to go into a whole lot of detail, because you said to make it short, in that situation, I and what would turn out to be 3 other soldiers, combat engineers, all witnessed 3 of these creatures observing our military exercise. And I watched them for approximately 25 seconds, which in the course of most sightings is a fairly lengthy viewing, but I got a very good long look at them. And that 25 seconds changed the entire course of my life. And I've been researching ever since, now a little over 32 years.
Wow. All right, and that leads us into one of our questions, but Ron, let's go ahead because Ron is probably the most famous from his experience. So, Ron, let's hear about yours.
Oh, well, can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, well, I was at the place where Todd had his sighting. It was right on a seaside, I think, wasn't it, Todd? Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, and we stayed there for a day or two or three or four. I forgot how long. Researching, but it's in a gated area, pretty private. But my experience getting into my account was in the Sierra Nevada mountains. It began for me in 1971 when I was a part of a group of hunters that was visiting this remote area in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The camp itself is 8,400 feet elevation, and it's about 8 miles into the wilderness once you leave the trail. And I mean, once you go as far as you can drive. Anyway, I'm responsible for the Sierra sounds, the recordings of these creatures, because we had repeated visits, which is usually pretty rare anyway. And we ended up taking tape recorders back with us and started coming back again. These things did so. Really, we wasn't until the fall of '72 when we got snowed out that Warren Johnson, the leader of our group, wrote Ivan Sanderson, told him about the incident. And Ivan Sanderson, I read this later in some correspondence between him and Peter Byrne, thought it was probably a hoax, somebody pulling his legs, but he did send it off to Peter. Wanted to know if he wanted to examine it because Peter's working up in Oregon at the time. He's in Northern California. Peter didn't want to come down there because he thought it was probably somebody pulling his leg too. So he contacted Al Berry, who he told was working at a newspaper at the time in Redding, California. He said, if you want to go out and talk to these guys, maybe something to it, but kind of doubt it. But Al went down there and like thinking the same thing. Somebody's pulling somebody's leg, but he did interview us, and we did end up, long story short, inviting him into camp. So he went in '72, and he started recording and experiencing the same thing. And he ended up fostering the studies at the University of Wyoming, a year-long study showing that they were outside the human range and inside the human range also, above and below, and also represented one of the clips represented an animal over 8 foot tall. And it wasn't until 2008 when a cryptolinguist named Scott Nelson, trained by the military to listen to different sounds and codes to see if there's any form of language there, if there's and try to interpret that, or not interpret it, transcribe it to see if it is a language or a code and is any maliciousness in it or not. And Scott heard him by accident, and he came out all the way from Missouri where he was teaching school because he had retired from the military then, and he said, I want to talk to you guys. And so we came out and got the context, and so I asked if he could take him and study him, and he did. And he came back a few months later and said, well, I hear language in this. He heard language the first time he heard him. That's what brought him out there. But he actually started transcribing a language like he does in the military and for the government. And anyway, he said they have language by the human definition of language. That's pretty significant, more significant than we even considered at the time. Uh, it was just only human, according to Dr. Lieberman at Brown University. Only humans have the uh, vocal mechanism for language as we do. So when you put those three PowerPoints together right there, PowerPoints, uh, it kind of tells me there's a human component to what we was interacting with up there. And I was interacting with them after a while. It wasn't until '74 when I finally started uh, actually having vocal interaction with them. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, and it is a great story, Ron. And I just want to take this time to point out that you, Rich, and Todd, when I started doing this, none of you guys knew me from Adam, and you guys were all very nice to me. You were all very patient with me, and I came into it, really really skeptical too. And number one, thinking I will never see an alien. I'll never see or hear Bigfoot. But I like to hear the stories, and since I grew up in Squim, I'm familiar with all the territory, and I know the Olympic Mountains pretty well. So if it wasn't for you guys, all three of you, I certainly wouldn't have come as far as I have. And I've just very briefly, I'm to the point now. I mean, I've field research. I've got I'm working on my actually sixth documentary now. And so I've jumped into the world of Bigfoot and aliens, and I've been able to learn a lot. And up until 2 months ago, I had never had any experience with Bigfoot. And so I was always in debt to people like you guys that had actually seen or heard or had some, I told Rich that I think he has a relationship with him. And he says, no relationship, but you can't contact them or them contact you without them having a reason. And that signifies a relationship. So, I just want to point out, and also want to point out, if you can see behind me, that old movie projector thing, that is my major award. That is from Todd. That is from Big Beachfoot 2024. Remember that, Todd?
Oh, indeed, I do. Yeah.
Well, that is from Todd. And so that shows you how far I've gone in the world of Bigfoot, aliens, and Dogman, in that I'm receiving major awards for my work. So I appreciate that. And of course, I appreciate Todd. So next topic is this. So you guys see Bigfoot, and let's just get to this really quick, because I don't want to keep saying, "Oh, I've had an experience," and then not, and then leave it in the back burner. So if you've been watching my Harstein Island, research stuff, I heard something one night when I was camping on Harstein Island. And what I heard, Ron, and I heard when we first talked, yeah, infrasound, yeah, quantum Bigfoot, it sounds good. It sounds interesting. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but now I know what you're talking about, because what Rich recorded and what I was trying to get us to be able to hear, or yes, it was Toby. Sorry.
Yeah, Toby recorded that, not me.
Okay. So what Toby recorded is exactly what I heard and what I recorded. And so to me, that sounded like a wail. It sounded like somebody's upset, and it sounds like somebody's in pain.
And see if that sounds like screaming. And we go out there, and sure enough, like way back in the woods back there's something in the distance screaming its head off and just like wailing. And at some points it sounds almost like human, but it's not.
All right, I don't know if you can hear it, but getting a lot of vocalizations right now. And so I'm doing call blasting on with my Bigfoot app, but I can't do both at the same time. So I've got to turn this off and I'm trying to communicate with these guys. And I don't know if you can hear that. But I got a call blast. I don't want to talk because I want you to hear that. But so I've been doing my call blasting, and kind of in an answer to every time they yell. And you hear that? That is nothing I've ever heard. That is, it's like somebody yelling. So I'm going to answer him. it sounded like somebody's upset, and it sounds like somebody's in pain, and they're just really pissed off. And I don't know what kind of impression you guys got from it. And this was so far off. I don't even know if it was from Harstein Island. It could have been from someplace else. A couple days later, I was back over there, and very briefly, I heard it again. I was just out looking at another BFRO site, very far off, and then they started a generator. Now, you're not going to believe this. No, not that. Not that. Well, we're not going to hear it now, but I just heard what I think were vocalizations, so I guess we're going to keep moving down the road. But so, Ron, I've been there. I know the sound now, and I know that hits you in that if that was to hit you where the thing is right next to you or near you, that will debilitate you. And I definitely think it's a language, and what they're and the way they are doing it signifies something. So, so any comments? Anybody?
Well, it is a language, number one. That's been established by a cryptolinguist who is a professor, not a professor, but a professional on languages and unknown sounds. And so that's, I don't know, I haven't heard what you recorded yet. I understand it's very similar to what I have. What I recorded the night I recorded the Samurai Cry, what they call the Samurai Cry, which was coined by Matt Moneymaker actually in 1995 or 6, I think it was just before he started the BFRO. And he's the one that actually coined that phrase, samurai. So it does have an Oriental flavor to it, the ones I recorded in 74. The ones we recorded in 71, 72, those are more aggressive and more intimidating sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't scare us off with those sounds. So I'm thinking that maybe cryptolinguists does too. It's the same mechanism that did the sounds from 72 as they did from 74. 72 is Alberi's sounds mainly. Mm-hmm. And he said that he thinks they slowed their chatter down to something like could be understood by me. And they were actually asking me something. I just don't know what it was. To this day, I don't know. But it's the same type chatter that Albert Osman talked about to John Green in his Apes Among Us book. But so anyway, Albert Osman heard that, and it's been said many times that they chatter they chatter very rapidly because they have a bigger brain, I'm sure, and maybe they just get carried away. Who knows? But it can be very intimidating when it's right close to you.
Well, it would seem to me that from hearing that sound that they have a structure, like you said, that is nothing like we have, and that the sound that they produce, that infrasound. Did you hear the story of in Venezuela they use some kind of weapon to make the security guards throw up?
Yeah, I heard that.
Well,
I heard
that's
that.
some kind of infrasound, right? And I
Good,
think
yeah.
that sound I heard, if I was to hear that and that thing was standing near me, I'd be throwing up myself. I don't know what I'd do. I think I'd lose control of everything. So
it was making them have nosebleeds and puke up blood and stuff too. I know that some people died from it. I'm pretty sure, but possibly.
If we can get back to the language thing, one of the things, Scott, being a crypto linguist for the Navy, in other words, he decoded. His job was to be able to decipher encrypted or coded languages, and to the point where he would listen for certain patterns. For instance, repeated phrases, obviously, repeated words, and then to try to associate them with phrases and how they would come in and out of the phrases and try to associate them with activity that was going on at the time. Um, it harkens back for me about a little over 3 years ago when I was on the Omaha Indian Reservation. I was invited by some folks there, Native Americans that I had been conversing with, texting with, and talking to with regards to what they suggested was somewhat of a relationship that they had formed with this species. And for me, that's a red flag. When somebody says I've seen Bigfoot, such as I have, and I think we all have probably experienced. That's one thing. But to say I've seen them twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then multiple times on a regular basis, that's a big red flag for me. So I didn't give them a lot of credence initially when they told me that, because that would imply that there's been some sort of an establishment of a relationship, if you will, let alone to suggest that you could call them in or summon them on command. And so that was another red flag for me. The other thing was this what they called what is referred to as, and I hate the term, but the eye shine effect, wherein it's suggested that this species can somehow generate light from their eyes, and not that I didn't look into it, but when I do look into it, I did not see anything that lined up for me as far as I looked into things such as bioluminescence, and you've got phosphorescence, you've got I've actually I scuba dive, as I know Ron has as well.
And
This
me.
what we call photoplankton, and I've gone night diving into photoplankton. It's really cool, and we can look at things like electrochemical generation of light and whatnot, like what fireflies do, for instance. But I could never make this association with mammals being able to do anything of that nature, and it just seemed counterintuitive to me. But I accepted an invitation to come out and visit them. And so I went out and spent a week on the Omaha Reservation, which is right on the eastern border of Nebraska. It actually, the Missouri River separates Nebraska and Iowa. And so you can imagine there's this, my thought is Nebraska, nothing but flat plains, corn, soybeans, but no mountains, no trees. But when you get to that eastern border, there is a valley there, riverine valley, and it's very heavily timbered with hardwoods and whatnot. I digress, but to say that when we got out there that first night, we never went out before midnight, but we went out that first night, and this is during COVID, and I only bring that up because everybody was pretty much locked down at that time. And my first go-to is, assume you're being pranked, hoaxed, whatever you want to say. But I kind of had my butt handed to me when I saw with my own eyes this eye shine event, not just once, but night after night, and their ability to literally call them in. And but what got me was the vocalizations that came along with this eye shine effect, if you will. And the very first night, maybe about 20, 30 minutes into what would be about a 2-hour interaction, I heard the first vocalization from these things, and it seemed to be a little farther back. I estimated that these individuals we were seeing were probably about 150 feet away, but this sound, this vocalization came from much further back, and maybe 200 yards or more. But it was very high pitched, very loud. I kind of presume it was a female just because of I've never heard anything in terms of Bigfoot vocalizations that were that high pitch. But what I heard that night, Matthew, was something akin to a melody or a song or a verse, a chorus, if you will. Not like, a full length song, mind you, but about a 5 to 6 second long tune of sorts. In that it within 6 seconds, let's say, it changed. It went through a repertoire of probably 6 or 7 different notes. I mean, literally different notes, different, not so much octaves, but different notes, if you will. And the cadence, the volume, the attenuation, all of it was very unusual for me and anything I've even heard. And I've listened to a lot of what Ron is recorded. I've probably heard a lot more than most people have, because when Ron, he alluded to our expedition in 1998, Ron brought along with him a shoebox full of cassette tapes of the original stuff that they had recorded back in the 70s, and there's a whole lot more to what Ron's put out than what he's got. But I will just say this: when we talk about a pattern, when we talk about what Scott looks for, Scott Nelson, looking for repeated words, looking for those words being put within the context of certain phrases and trying to associate those phrases with the situation, and trying to, had she done this one time, I would have, well, in and of itself, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it wasn't threatening whatsoever. But then there was a pause of like 10 to 15 seconds, and then she did it again. And she did it exactly the same way in every aspect that she did, the first time. It was note for note, the exact same thing. And within the course of a minute, she did it 4 times, and each and every time it was identical. So we're not talking about some arbitrary whoop or howl or knock or growl or roar or whatever you want to call it. We're talking about a very organized, if you will, sentence, a statement, whatever. You don't repeat something unless there's some sort of meaning to it. And what struck me was she did it 4 times identically. The 4th one was exactly the same as the first one. And to me, that means there's a meaning to it. Otherwise, it'd just be some arbitrary gibberish. But the fact that she repeated that tells me that if there's a meaning to it, then there's a language. And that's what really struck me, was that melody had meaning, and that meaning means there's language.
Yeah. Well, I would go so far as to say it's not so much a language, it's the sound they make that is their communication, that we couldn't even fathom what they're trying to say. Like Ron and I had talked before about when they do that, when I was in the Army, they did the code, the speed, where they do the speed bursts, putting out a lot of information in just one burst, right? Anybody? Bueller? Okay, nobody's up. I guess this is the 80s, so maybe okay. But the code guys would do a speed transmission, and I just wonder if when these when they're talking, they're putting out a lot of information that's buried in the sound they're putting out. All right, Rich has been very quiet and not said much, and I'm going to go back to Rich and talk. You guys have touched on the idea of a relationship, and you can't have a relationship without communication. And Ron and Todd have both talked about some kind of communications. So, Rich, do you ever feel like anybody was specifically communicating with you? I mean, not anybody, but Bigfoot.
No, I've never heard any verbal communication before, other than, and that wasn't directed at me. I have heard here where I live, not recently, but I've heard a couple of times where like a two-syllable statement or a word, it was obviously communicated between one and another. Um, the Strange Days, they are doing their own independent investigation. They did record, it would have been last summer, a dialogue between what sounded like a male and a female voice, where they got a little bit of, I guess you could call it samurai type chatter, but it wasn't real extensive. It was clearly between two individuals that weren't doing it for they were doing it to talk to each other.
Mhm.
And it was after they had played some whale music or whales, songs or whatever that had prompted that. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I believe there would be actual language. They communicate with each other. They, try to communicate with us through other means, like it could be what we deem as wood knocking, that sound. I mean, we're doing it, so they may be doing it in response to us sometimes too, to go back and forth. So that's communication. All different types of communication, really, I would say.
Okay. All right. Now I want to just ask you guys very quickly. You guys had an experience with Bigfoot, and I don't know if I want to go so far as to say it changed your lives, but it definitely you took a different path. Well, how do you explain that, Ron? How do you explain, 30 years now?
Uh,
How
50.
does it affect you that much?
Well, it's been over 50 years since this
50
started with
years,
me.
see?
Yeah.
I was
I
trying
think,
to give you I was trying to give you some
well, thank
slack.
you, but decades ago, it's just, well, it changes you because you got to, at least has me, because you can't handle the mystery. It's our human nature to research it. And that's what I've been doing for all these years. And, it's just, taking me to a whole nother level of living and thinking about what we are and what these things could be and what's really going on this planet. It's taken me all the way back into Mesopotamia. It's taken me into the way back into the cuneiform texts, which is the oldest written language in existence that we know of. And it's just quite a study when you get into knowing, and at least you think you know, about maybe where all these dots are leading to, what kind of a picture it's giving you, and what we're here for. Because what was the reason they communicated with me or tried to communicate with me that night? I think everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. That's my quantum. That's physics. And if they're energy like they are, and like we are, and like everything is, if you can reach the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. And that's a hard one for us in our third density to get our heads around. But really, if Einstein said define the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. So that's been established also by Dr. Paul Dirac, who won the Nobel Prize for it, actually for antimatter in 1933. And that's the direct exchange between matter and energy. And so some people say, well, they can't disappear, or nothing like that can happen. How do track waves stop? Well, they can't just stop. Uh, like Todd mentioned earlier about, if you've seen one over once, most researchers will write you off if you see one twice in your lifetime. It's like lightning getting hit twice. I think our good friend Peter Burns said that. Like you can't get hit by lightning twice and still be credible. But anyway, we had this happen to us multiple times up there, and that was hard for a lot of people to get a hold of. But this film they're coming out with, the Renaissance, who I think you guys might know of, they do these Flash of Beauty. They're putting this film together. It's over an hour long. I just filmed with them again yesterday. This is about the last of it, I think. Then they're going to finish the editing. But it's going to take anybody that's on the edge of this thing over the edge. And they're going to know without a doubt because these guys have done a marvelous job. They've been working on this for close to 3 years now. So, in fact, more than that, actually. So, anyway, that itself will talk about the language. It will talk about it's going to bring the professionals on board. It's going to have all kinds of, it'll just capture everything. And I know David Pilati just came out with his film here a month or two ago, and that kind of hit the market and it's doing well, but this is going to go even further. It's going to go deeper, and it's going to be groundbreaking for a lot of people, because if you're on the edge with without they can talk, and again, they're not all the same. I got to say that again. They're not all the same. These things aren't. So some can talk, some can't. Some are crossbred with indigenous people. That makes them more human-like. Maybe they lost or recessed some of their abilities. It's a lot to this than just meets our eye. You can't just say, well, that's a Bigfoot, that's not a Bigfoot because it has a mid-tarsus breaker, because it doesn't sound like what Ron's got or something like that. It's a lot of people report hearing what I've got, but a lot of people just report a hoop or yell or scream, and they think it's a Bigfoot. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. There's people that can analyze that, but I'm just kind of jattering here because there's a lot going on here that people just need to research. And we're at the year now where I think a lot of stuff is going to get disclosed, and we're going to be made aware of a lot of things the public is that they have not been aware of for a long time. Our government, I believe, knows about this. But again, if you can't explain it, if you don't know about it, you better hide it or make fun of it, one or the other. That's what the government's motto is. So
Well, that was really where I wanted to kind of end up at, but
did I end it for you?
no, not quite yet. No, because you've touched on a couple things, and Todd had touched on a couple things about that. There's a video that I wanted to show, and I'm gonna edit it in for my when I release this on YouTube. But there is a guy called Overland. I'm gonna just tell you really quick. It's Overland Voyager Overland on YouTube, and this guy had his camera out like at night, right? And have you guys seen this video? You've got like a translucent Bigfoot creature. Its eyes are just glowing, right? And it is walking around, but it's not there. It's translucent, right? You can see right through it. But what you can see is its eyes are just burning, and you really have to see this, because the guy. I mean, when you listen to the guy who's out there with his family, it doesn't look like he'd be out there to pull a hoax. But I think this is really where this is going to end up, and this explains just about everything. And I'm just going to go into very quickly, not trying to plug my movie, but I had a pool of blood show up in my tent, and I have no idea how that got there, right? And whoever put it there must have been, I'm sorry to say, invisible. So when you watch this video of this overland guy, I'll leave a link, whatever, but I'll put it in the when I edit, and it'll be in this movie or in this podcast. But this is it. That's it. These things are invisible. They can go in and out, and they have that infrashine in their eyes, and they can see whatever. And now, when I was out filming another one of my movie in the Olympics, I had some creature I've never even seen before show up in my trail cam, and for some reason, and it had the infrashine in its eyes. It was no creature I've ever seen, and it had the same kind of infrashine as this Bigfoot did. So anyway, there are things out there that, and that was my next point, is that the technology is really allowing us to see what this thing really is. Go ahead, Rich. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. I mean, like you guys have been talking about, so expanded awareness. because we have knowledge of these things because of our different experiences, mine, Todd's, Ron's, we know that something is out there that the general public doesn't really know that exists. We have visual proof, personal experience related to it. And it's all these different things, aspects of it too, like these extra normal abilities that they seem to demonstrate, from remote communication, remote location, eye shine, self illumination, cloaking potentially, and maybe other stuff too that we don't know, the language aspect of it. And, it's what it really is telling you is that there's something different about the environment than what we kind of have been told, that the earth, the actual physical environment, the things that are, existent, there's something else going on than what the narrative, the history that we've been told about, right? So we have this expanded awareness about the environment. We may not know exactly what it is or can't, explain it all at this point, but we know it's there, and we know that it's not what we've been told. And these things, the more we learn, seem to surprise you more and more, and to expand it even further because of these obvious abilities that they have that you hear repeated over and over again in eyewitness accounts. And if somebody is doing these investigations long enough, like Todd even said, you may have doubted this or that, but eventually you might experience it your own self, and then you can't doubt it anymore because it's there. You may not know how they're doing it or what's causing it, but you know that it's going on. And you get to the military aspect of it and the government and whatnot, and what it makes you realize is that, so these things are real. Their abilities seem to be real, highly advanced. These things seem to be hyper aware, right? And maybe that's how they derive these abilities, because they have a different awareness about the environment, and they know how to manipulate or use the environment to their advantage to be able to do these feats, right? Or they have more control over their physical being even, or it's hard to say, exactly, but it would be, common sense that our intelligence agencies and our military would exhaust all available resources to learn as much as possible about these things, merely for the national security implications and the technology implications when it comes to weaponry and overall control of the human population and things of that nature. And, for any type of advantage whatsoever they could get. And obviously these things have displayed that they have dramatic advantage in many avenues and seem to have extra normal capabilities. So obviously there's things they're not telling us. They know a lot more than what they're letting on.
If I could say something along those lines, we talk about awareness, we talk about capabilities, and I think awareness is something that we tend, as humans, to limit ourselves to our own capabilities. And we have very measurable limitations when it comes to hearing, for instance. We can talk about, we do a hearing test, right? We put on the earmuffs, we got the buttons in our left and right hand, hit the button when you hear a sound. And we tend to, humans can listen anywhere from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. We know dogs can hear down as low as 15 hertz and up to 35,000 hertz. Bottom line is humans have limitations. And so when we talk about things that are seemingly paranormal or beyond our understanding, it's not that it's beyond our understanding. It's very, very real. It's what's beyond our own perception and what our limited perception allows us to have. So the same applies in vision, for instance. Certain animals we know have nocturnal vision. So obviously felines, cats, and certain other animals that operate at night with impunity because they can see as clearly at night as we do during the day. But here we are, human beings, being limited by our own, capabilities, or better said, incapabilities. And so we shouldn't just set aside, or I should say, categorize things beyond our understanding necessarily as being paranormal or supernatural. I think we need to understand that we as humans are very limited, as are other species. There's other species that we look at bats. Bats are blind as a, that's right, bat, right? But yet they can fly at high speeds through a cave using echolocation as a means of sight, and be able to dodge stalactites and stalagmites, and things that we consider paranormal. If you look at the definition of paranormal, it is anomalies that, given today's technology, today's understanding scientifically, are unexplainable. If you extrapolate that to things, say, going back 100 years, there's a lot of things we know, all good and well today, that 100 years ago would have been in that category of supernatural, paranormal, because it was beyond our ability to understand. And I think as we go forward in the future, it's pretty predictable, but there's a lot of things that are in that paranormal, supernatural category that will become a common understanding, because we now have the technology to measure it, to understand it, and what have you. So this species is extraordinary, absolutely. By means, I mean extraordinary, meaning beyond the ordinary things that we understand, given the set of wildlife that, as we know it. But we're still learning new things. We're still finding out new things, and so it's not magic. It's not hookah. It's just that there's certain animals that are gifted with certain properties, certain abilities that we don't have. But that doesn't necessarily put them in a category of being magical or anything outside the norm. Everything is really within the norm. Paranormal is normal.